Hi, I'm Joel Neeb, a former F-15 pilot, and now the VP of Execution and Transformation at VMware. I'm fascinated by the progression of technology and the power of simplification. Because as technology advances over time and becomes more complex, that complexity eventually becomes unmanageable. And it's not just in IT. Let's take an example from the history of my former profession as a pilot. Now, the first airplane, the 1903 Wright Flyer, had almost no instruments. It was essentially a wooden flying machine that was never airborne for more than 59 seconds. And fast forward 15 years, and we had cockpits with a set of basic instruments. They answered the critical questions. How high up in the air am I? How fast am I going? How much fuel do I have left? And as aviation progressed, so did the technology in the cockpit. By the 1940s, we had advanced equipment to determine our location and communicate by radio. You can imagine how welcome these advancements were at the time, and how each instrument and other technologies added to the capabilities and awareness of the flight crew. By the time I was flying, we had GPS that could tell me my location with a margin of error measured in feet. I flew with an aerial map that looked like it had been ripped out of a video game. But something else happened along our path of aviation advancement. We added more and more to the cockpit, to the point where my F-15 had over 350 switches and dials. Now, each new instrument and control was useful. There was no denying its functional addition to the cockpit, but the human pilot, me, now had trouble managing all of this information. We were often drowning in data and starving to make sense of it all. In short, we had too much complexity. So let's recap. The number of instruments increased in the cockpit from roughly 0 in 1903 to a dozen or so in 1940 to 350 when I flew. You might expect that by now there would be over 500 instruments in today's cockpits. But instead, only 4 to 6 instruments are visible. We simplified the complexity and now only show the pilots the most important instruments in any phase of flight. These are the critical things to measure, and we had to narrow it down to a few to make the biggest impact. As Steve Jobs once said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Modern aircraft design is highly sophisticated, and so are the technologies that enable all of the benefits of the cloud and now multi-cloud environments. But we've reached a tipping point in multi-cloud, where the complexity needs to be simplified. And at VMware, we simplify through abstraction. In the same way we abstracted the complexity of the data center with virtualization, we're abstracting the complexity of multi-cloud so your teams can focus on what they do best, building and managing the applications that propel your business transformation. Let's hear about the power of simplification from a few of our customers.
We need to give our medical staff access to all the applications, all data at their fingertips, at any time, everywhere.
We need to be able to take workload from our digital stack and take it wherever the data may reside.
One of the challenges that we had is that we had to share not only our emails, but also our tools.
Whenever an application is needed to optimize workflows or patients' care, we use VMware Cloud Foundation with Tanzu Kubernetes.
The VMware platform, and particularly the Virtual Cloud Foundation, could meet the demands and the expectations that the academic arena has.
VMware Multi-Cloud environment is glued together our Amazon environment with our Google environment with our own private cloud environment.
I think we are on an exciting journey together with VMware to push the boundaries of medical care.
The global platform is going to really open up and allow us to be able to work in environments we couldn't work in before.
We could not achieve our multi-cloud strategy without VMware.
Now, enjoy the briefing.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. Like Joel said, and you heard from our customers, simplicity is transformative. And it's not about doing less, it's about focus. Focus on the outcome that matters, like delivering application to patient care or expanding to new geographies. But today, application infrastructure is increasingly complex. 83% of you have workloads deployed across a combination of the data center, the public cloud, a colocation provider, and increasingly, the edge. And when you add a new stack to your environment, you must answer questions like, can my staff learn and operate this? Will my apps run reliably? And how do I manage cost and security? These challenges inevitably distract you from the outcome that you are trying to achieve. So, in this briefing today, we're going to demonstrate how you can propel your business in the multi-cloud world with the freedom to choose any environment for your apps and the control that you require as an enterprise. So let's dive right in. For our first segment, let's check in with a great customer of ours, S&P Global, to hear about the structure that they have implemented in their cloud operation to stay focused on the business outcome and accelerate time to market. Ben, welcome to the Multi-Cloud Briefing. I'm so excited to have you because I believe you have an amazing story to share about how you use multi-cloud to accelerate your modern application development and in turn your business. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Vittorio. I really appreciate it.
So let's start by describe your role and what you do at S&P Global.
Sure. So I'm currently head of technology platforms and operations for the engineering solutions division at S&P Global. We were formerly IHS Markit up until about 3 weeks ago, and I'm responsible for the infrastructure platforms that support our revenue generating applications for the division, and how are we going to operate them? How do we deliver the solutions to our developers, which in turn enable them to develop solutions for our customers?
And this is very topical because the way you set up your infrastructure to support modern application development is undergoing a lot of changes, right? So tell us about the challenges you're facing today with your on-prem presence and you're moving to the cloud and the whole thing.
Absolutely. So we've got, like many companies, we have data centers. We run VMware cloud, private clouds, using things like the vRealize suite to manage that. We've also got extensive presence in AWS, Azure, and other public cloud providers, which we have to manage. And one of the challenges that we're faced with, particularly as we modernize our applications, is I have to deal with these multiple different operating models for each one of our public cloud environments and for our on-prem systems, which, as you can imagine, makes for a lot of operational complexity from my team's perspective.
And so how have you tackled these challenges?
Yeah, great question. So we took a step back, and it was very clear that we needed to come up with a common operating model for the cloud. And the obvious choice for that was to look at Kubernetes. Now, I can go into AWS or Azure and look at EKS and AKS and Kubernetes as a service, etc. But I still then have to have these engineers with AWS or Azure specific expertise. And I want to operate in a multi-cloud environment. I don't want to tie myself to any one of the hyperscale cloud providers, whether it's through concentration of business risk, or from a sort of a cost arbitrage perspective. I want to be able to leverage all of the cloud providers in a fairly agnostic manner for my business. And that sort of led me to say, well, okay, great. Kubernetes makes sense from a sort of an application dial tone perspective. But this is where something like VMware Tanzu really comes to the forefront and enables me to have a consistent operating model across the public cloud and my private cloud environments. So I can start to have a standardized application development environment for my consumers.
As you adopted Tanzu, how has that changed the way you operate, and especially when you have the launch of a new application in production?
Sure. So as we're sort of ramping up our Tanzu usage, it's very much a case of, before, even when we were using Amazon's own bundled Kubernetes service, we'd deploy a cluster and then we'd have to do a bunch of manual work, and we could wrap that up in some Terraform scripts potentially, but there was still a fair bit of heavy lifting for us to do there. With things like TKG and mission control, we can very rapidly stand up a new Kubernetes environment for a given application, or partition an existing one into a new namespace for these applications. So we can, my goal is to get to the sort of situation of environment as a service for our developers, so that we're not standing in their way. They're not waiting for us to spin up infrastructure or cloud services for them. And that's, Tanzu's a real enabler for that. I can give them an API and say, hey, point here, and you can spin up your own Kubernetes cluster if you really want to, without having to worry about whether they know AWS or Azure or GCP.
So Ben, that's great. So with Tanzu and Kubernetes, you created this abstraction, this way to create new applications in multi-cloud. Tell me what you're doing with your enterprise applications.
Yeah, great question. Like any business, we have a variety of applications, particularly in our on-prem data centers, and they'll range from, we do have containerized applications there, and those will be lifted and shifted up into Tanzu is my goal with those. But then we also have applications that run the extremes from a Corba-based Solaris, where we're still sort of looking at a rewrite there, all the way into applications that have things like Oracle RAC databases, which don't naturally translate into public cloud because of the scale of the database. For those, that's where VMware's cloud on AWS is a fantastic answer. VMC enables us to take something like Oracle RAC, lift it up into the cloud, and potentially even run it in a hybrid way so that we've got cloud native applications accessing that Oracle database in a performant manner inside VMC.
And can you elaborate on how you standardize operation for your new application development?
Yeah, sure. So the way I started thinking about this is, if we go back to looking at the data center in the early 2000s, we had, every time we wanted to start doing something, whether it was building a new application server or something, someone would have to go and rack a server, etc. And then virtualization happened. We had the early days of ESX, and that kind of became the default operating model for the data center. And then, okay, well, zoom forward 20 years, we're now in the situation where we're in the cloud, everyone can spin up resources here, there, and everywhere, and it's kind of unmanaged chaos. And then we have the new paradigm for the cloud, which really is Kubernetes. And I think Tanzu and Kubernetes is to the cloud what ESX was to the data center 20 years ago. And what that is enabling us to do is provide a standardized environment with strong governance in all of the clouds in a consistent way that enables our developers to have a very clear understanding of what they can expect to get when they go to start deploying their applications there. And the standardization is absolutely crucial. I have a saying I use a lot: standardize, automate, orchestrate. If you don't have standards, it's very hard for us to wrap things together and have this sort of end-to-end experience for our developers. So that's why that gets to be so important for us.
I think that's a great analogy for many of our customers, right? Creating the level of abstraction. On-prem, we use the hypervisor, right? You aggregate, you automate, and orchestrate, as you say. In the cloud, we have to do it at a different level, and Tanzu and Kubernetes provide that level of abstraction that accelerates the business. Given that you're ahead, I believe you're ahead of many customers out there. If you have to tell them one thing to start with the right foot as they embark in modern application development using Kubernetes eventually across multiple clouds?
If I had to tell people one thing, I think it would be, it's not about the technology. It's ultimately about the people and the process, and bringing your DevOps teams along with you and making sure that they understand why you're going into this multi-cloud world. And that changes a little bit of how they're going to think about things. And then, that adapts your process and then ultimately your technologies. But you've got to bring people with you on this journey. People are the most important part of this.
Ben, this was a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing with our customers. I cannot thank you enough.
No, my absolute pleasure, Vittorio. Thank you for having me.
They're really on the bleeding edge of global multi-cloud operation. So, how does it all work? For our next segment, let's ask our VP and Chief Technology Officer for the Americas, Amanda Blevins. She will explain and demonstrate the technologies that deliver the cloud abstraction layer that enables you to choose where to run your apps without adding complexity. Over to you, Amanda.
Thanks, Vittorio. Organizations today have a diverse approach to applications and infrastructure, running workloads in the public cloud, in the private cloud, and at the edge. Now, this means that developers have different APIs, and operators have different tools for management, monitoring, and security. And the problem is that these differences don't provide business value. In fact, they're detractors from helping developers and operators create new business value and new business applications. So to help reduce this complexity, we've added a layer of abstraction called multi-cloud services. So let's think about the history of abstraction. First, we had machine code, and now we have programming languages with compilers. We had compute hardware, and now we use hypervisors. And now we've gone from single cloud environments to use multi-cloud services. Our family of multi-cloud services, VMware Cross-Cloud Services, provides these abstractions at several layers. Take VMware Cloud, for example. With just a few lines of code, you can deploy a complete enterprise-grade VMware infrastructure stack wherever you choose. And you can use vRealize Cloud Management to have the same operational model across all of your cloud deployments. I invite my colleagues, Francisco Hernandez and Matt Bradford, to give us a quick demo.
Thanks, Amanda. We're going to demonstrate now how vRealize Cloud Management tools allow you to quickly add a new cloud environment and manage every VMware cloud you deploy from a single place. Okay, thank you to vRealize automation, abstraction capabilities of multi-cloud environments, I can go from one single word-lock deployment on-prem to a multi-cloud VMware Cloud deployment by easily adding a few lines of code. This will allow me to present to my consumer an easy way to access this cloud environment, hide the complexity, and just deploy the workloads they need wherever they need it. As you can see right here, I have multiple cloud environments on Azure, on-prem, on AWS, and they all share the same capabilities: name conventions, day two actions, lists, policies, and so on. Now let's take a look into VRApps.
All right, thanks, Francisco. vRealize Operations is available both as a SaaS offering or can be deployed on-prem. It includes native integrations for your on-prem, hybrid, or public cloud services and can be easily configured within minutes. vRealize Operations will help your teams get the most out of your multi-cloud environments through activities such as right-sizing virtual machines, reclaiming wasted resources by cleaning up snapshots, and removing powered off or idle virtual machines. You can even automate these tasks through Automation Central. Plus, you'll get valuable insights into the costs of your various clouds. You'll get a detailed breakdown of the costs of your services and infrastructure, as well as areas where you could potentially be saving money. vRealize Operations helps your teams cut through the noise with powerful alerting and troubleshooting capabilities, such as the Troubleshooting Workbench for infrastructure and cloud services alike. By automatically identifying anomalies and potential root cause, plus integration with vRealize LogInsight and LogInsight Cloud, your teams will spend less time troubleshooting, all from within a single interface. And now, back to Amanda.
This is great when you need a secure, resilient, enterprise-grade, pre-assembled stack deployed in the public cloud, private cloud, or at the edge. And when you use the full capacity of VMware Cloud, it's actually less expensive than native public cloud services to run your apps. Now, when you have cloud-native applications or refactored applications, you might be using one or more public cloud Kubernetes services such as AKS, EKS, or GKE. Or you might be running your container-based workloads in Tanzu Kubernetes Grid or in OpenShift. Our cross-cloud service, Tanzu Mission Control, provides a single interface to be able to deploy, manage, and secure conformant Kubernetes services in any environment. So this way, you can quickly use Kubernetes services without having to learn the intricacies of each, because Tanzu abstracts away this complexity. Finally, applications running on Kubernetes have APIs, microservices, and data that connect at runtime. And every connection is a potential point of risk. So Tanzu Service Mesh protects and connects your applications through fine-tuned authorization and encryption. So your microservices are securely connected across clouds, and your data is encrypted in transit. To show us how this works, I invite my colleague Boskey Salva to give us a quick demo.
Thank you, Amanda. As you can see, I'm in Tanzu Mission Control, which is a great place to create new clusters on any given cloud provider or attach existing Kubernetes clusters. Today, I have a Google Kubernetes Engine cluster that I'm going to attach and bring under the management of Tanzu Mission Control. So here's my GKE cluster. I'm calling it GKE VMware Cross Cloud. And what I want to do is bring it under the management of Tanzu Mission Control. To do so, it's pretty simple. All I have to do is click on Attach Cluster, give the cluster a name, provide a cluster group to that where that cluster will be part of, click Next. And Tanzu Mission Control will give me an agent to install. All I do is copy that agent, kubectl command, and paste it in my GKE engine Kubernetes cluster. This is a very quick step, and once this goes through, the agent talks back to Tanzu Mission Control, and you'll see that the new Google Kubernetes engine cluster has successfully connected. Once it's connected, I can manage this cluster from Tanzu Mission Control without having to get into any other cloud console. This GKE cluster under Tanzu Mission Control, I can simply manage it, add Tanzu Service Mesh to this GKE cluster from TMC with a click of a button. All I have to do is click Add, and Tanzu Service Mesh and all its component will quickly be installed within the GKE cluster. Now, once Tanzu Service Mesh components start getting installed, Service Mesh is going to go ahead. It is going to analyze all the services, all the microservices, APIs that are deployed within that cluster, and it will show you a service level graph of everything we have. I'm right now installing an Acme Fitness app that is going to have multiple microservices. And once this application is deployed in my GKE cluster, you'll see that in Tanzu Service Mesh, it is automatically going to detect all these services. Now within Tanzu Service Mesh, our cluster is already attached, and I can create a global namespace. A global namespace is nothing but a logical construct of all the microservices that are applicable to a given application. Now these microservices can be in a single cluster, or they could be across cluster. A global namespace gives me the ability to define security policies, central certificate management, etc. Here I'm creating an Acme Fitness group called Global Namespace. I'm going to give it the domain where all my microservices are registered. Once that is done, I can select the cluster from which I want to incorporate microservices. So I'm going to select my GKE cluster and then select the namespace in which I want to gather all the services. Tanzu Service Mesh automatically detects all the microservices that were part of that cluster and namespace. Once the global namespace has been defined, it creates a security boundary around all these microservices. The global namespace creates automated certificate management for that domain, and it will create mutual TLS-based encryption across all these different services. A global namespace can also be defined on applications that span across multiple clouds. For example, in this scenario, we have the same Acme Fitness app deployed across 2 Kubernetes clusters and a global namespace that spans multiple clusters. You can see the shopping cart app was deployed on a vSphere cluster, and the catalog application was deployed on an AWS cluster. All the microservices are talking across these different cloud provider environments, and the global namespace is ensuring certificate management, security, and mutual TLS encryption across all these services. This was a quick overview of Tanzu Service Mesh and Mission Control. Back to you, Amanda.
Each of these cross-cloud services abstract complexity from your multi-cloud architectures for traditional and modern applications. So you can run your apps where you choose while improving developer experience and simplifying your operations. Back to you, Vittorio.
It's clear that multi-cloud services are already playing a critical role in cloud transformation and modern application delivery. And the ability to develop and deploy applications wherever you choose without complexity is our goal for you as a customer. To help us deliver these outcomes, we count on our partners that support you on your transformation journey. Let's quickly hear the perspective of one of our partners on this path, DXC.
The VMware Tanzu strategy allows DXC to deliver cloud-native modern applications for our customers that are highly available, that are more secure, that can leverage and be deployed upon multi-clouds without additional work. Customers choose DXC because of our broad experience in a large number of diverse technologies, our ability to deliver globally for our customers, and the success that our customers have when they work with us.
Typically, customers turn to DXC for the learnings that we have, the forged in the fire types of experiences that we're able to take from one customer to the next. And it's that knowledge, the domain experience, And then that coupled with the global scale and reach that we're able to deliver to customers, it's a roll up the sleeves, can do, get it done, safe pair of hands with innovation that customers often turn to DXC for.
And now, for our final segment, I'm thrilled to introduce you to the leader of our cloud management business, Purnima Padmanabhan, and IDC Vice President Stephen Elliot for a conversation on this new category of multi-cloud services.
Hello everyone, this is Purnima Padmanabhan and I'm here with Stephen Elliot from IDC.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you.
Multi-cloud has become a reality. Every enterprise and every customer that I speak with has minimum one on-prem plus multiple public clouds. Of course, it gives us velocity, it gives us the ability to innovate faster, but with that also comes complexity. So the first question is, what kinds of challenges are you seeing customers face in this new era?
Yes, we're seeing a couple key challenges. First and foremost, as this complexity continues to increase, the organizational constructs and the processes attached to each of these unique cloud architectures are extremely hard to manage. And so we're seeing the organizations create new titles such as observability engineers or DevOps engineers, platform operations teams, site reliability engineers, and really having to manage through the roles and responsibilities, as well as understanding the unique capabilities of each of these cloud architectures. So the processes that tied to each one also are intersecting more and more and causing a lot of complexity to manage. The other piece, the technology side, continues to get complex as we're seeing the need to manage traditional private cloud architectures and these emerging public cloud architectures. More and more, the importance of security, of governance, of orchestration, of service delivery, these things, cost management, all of these things have to be precisely, executed to drive a great business outcome.
So it seems like with all this complexity, one of the key needs is to be able to have common skill sets that can be applied across all these disciplines. And there is a need for standardization. That is what we are investing from a cloud management perspective at VMware. Irrespective of on-prem or native public clouds, how can we give standardized disciplines across cost, performance, security, and automation so that customers can easily manage the complexity? And that is what we are delivering to. Now, with these types of solutions in the market, how do you see customers benefiting from them?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've seen a number of IT organizations really look at this idea of standardization, of thinking about how integration, common data models, applying analytics to these common data models, how they drive great business outcomes. And there's a couple of things that stand out. Number one, team and cost optimization. There's no doubt that the productivity of teams goes way up as they all work off a common data set and a common set of tools. Number two is this whole notion of standardization, which drives a higher return on investment from these different cloud architectures, because you're really reducing the complexity of not only the tool chains, but you're also enabling more automated processes across teams, as well as a common language and a common data set that everyone can agree to that's accurate and that's going to drive the right business outcome. So it really is all coming together, and we're seeing more organizations really understand that when you standardize and when you drive tighter collaboration, really great outcomes can be not only faster, but you really drive a more proactive posture across these teams.
That's fantastic. So now the last question, where should customers start?
Yes, we do a number of advisory sessions on this, and there's a couple key points. Number one, cost optimization. I can't tell you how many organizations realize I need to know who's using what and where my spend is going across the various cloud architectures. So cost transparency, cost optimization, a great starting point. Number two, security. As software-defined infrastructures, as virtual networking, as companies look at their software development life cycles and CI/CD, really understanding how security can be put in front of that software delivery lifecycle, and how operations teams and security and development teams can all work together to drive a better security posture. And then the final one is really about system reliability. We're seeing that the technology architecture has become the business architecture for almost every client. And now, especially in the time of COVID, we've seen CEOs understand that if my digital services aren't working, my customers are going elsewhere.
Now that is fantastic. So Stephen, we have a huge opportunity to drive significant value to our customers in this new era. With our multi-cloud and cross-cloud services that bring standardization when it comes to management of cost, security, performance, that drives common automation, that allows for common modern app development platforms across these various environments, we hope to change the landscape. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We truly believe that the freedom to choose the cloud environment you need for your apps without adding complexity is the future of multi-cloud that will propel your business forward. With VMware Cross-Cloud Services, we're entering a new chapter of innovation to deliver this freedom. So, subscribe to this channel for more updates and head over to vmware.com/go/crosscloud to dive into the services that you can get started with today. Thanks for watching.